Yes, I have played Atari today.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
That's right, folks. My messy project area table is not getting any cleaner anytime soon. I've been having a ball with all this Atari stuff, with this little Atari renaissance that's been going on. And not only that, but the prices of the 7800 Plus and the 2600 Plus have been dropping without a flash sale on Amazon Prime, but there still continue to be flash sales of the 7800 Plus. I think a lot of it has to do with the niche market status of this box. Like we mentioned last time, if you want to play Atari, there are lots of wonderful compilation games and emulator games like Atari 50, and then you can just buy the peripherals for these things to get the authentic feeling peripherals. So you don't really need to go rummaging through whatever's left of Facebook Marketplace and eBay's Atari sections. Or in my case, East Starland and DK Oldies, oddly enough. Considering the problems DK Oldies had with dirty consoles earlier, I was like, hey, anyone want me to make a YouTube video complaining about a dirty 45-year-old Atari game that I got from DK Oldies? Well, we got some stuff here, we got stuff coming in, because I better work some extra hours, because I'm almost back to my shoebox full of Atari games that I had when I was a kid. I mean, when your games are like this size, of course you can just throw a bunch of them in a shoebox and take them over to your friend's house. Or, you know, maybe you have the same games and stuff, and your parents like, write your name on the game so your friend doesn't mix it up with theirs. It's like, you know, I think the appeal of the Atari, though, is just the simplicity stands out so much in comparison to what gaming has become like a generation and a half later here in the 2020s, or with all the DLC and the predatory practices and games as a service, to go all the way back to crude, primitive cartridge games like this on a box that isn't like some gimmick-loaded piece of junk, but is literally a legitimate new console that plays old games. Hey, what are you gonna do? So let's go through how I should be, well, working extra hours at work because of all this silliness. So Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest you're already familiar with, the pack-in game with the 7800 Plus ESRB label on an Atari game. That's not something you see every day. But this game is complete nonsense because it's not on the Vectrex. Classic Game Room fans might get that reference. So, I mean, compared to older Atari games, it does feel cheaper and lighter, and probably has different electronics in it running the game these days. Copyright 2024 Atari Interactive. So I did a little bit of digging around, and there have been 3 Ataris, not 2 like I originally said. Atari Inc. was the original Atari in the 70s, and then it went corporate with Atari Corporation, and now is a subsidiary of Atari SA, which is the rebranded version of Infogrames. It's Atari Interactive. So, but this game still is crap because it's not on the Vectrex. I don't know. Let's continue. It's nice to see a Mario-style platformer on the 7800, although the music is public domain. If you know any classical music, you know what I'm talking about. But let's go through the rest of the haul, shall we? Atlantis. This one's from East Starland. The shiny iMagic cartridges, excuse me. Atlantis. This game used to scare the crap out of me. Yeah. This is a shooter game where you're basically defending Atlantis from getting blown up, and some of the flashing screens and the violent sound effects, stuff like that, even on the Atari, scared me as a kid. So, not so much nowadays, but good old Miss Pac-Man. This is a DK Oldies one with a faded label. One of the things you find out, though, when you're going through all of this, is that Atari games just kind of come and go because it was so long ago. People largely still send them around out of curiosity. If you don't want to be rolling the dice on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, you'll just find who has the carts and then place the orders as they become available. So it's also why I support Atari SA releasing new Atari games for this console physically, especially when we're talking about, physical media and stuff like that. So, Ms. Pac-Man, this one was a DK Oldies one with a faded label. It obviously sat somewhere where the sun beat down on it. But the fun part is there's tie-ins between these consoles and Atari Age. So Atari Age, the website of Atari fans and whatnot, actually has some firmware updates, which I figured out how to install on the 7800 Plus since then. So, Berserk! This one's an East Starland one, and it looks pretty good, considering this game's as old as I am. And the reason why you're going to see a lot of secondhand games with this thing in the middle is if anybody ever opened it up, I think these are clamshell packages, so someone opening it up in order to clean the contacts that are hidden behind this slider doohickey that you gotta poke in order to get it to slide back, and yeah, it's basically a way of protecting the contacts from dust. Back in the days when video games were so new, nobody knew how to take care of them, so they were basically made up like children's toys. So you had to like smash the crap out of them or dunk them in the toilet to break them or something. Berserk, the game where you go around shooting robots and a bouncy smiley face guy named Evil Otto takes you out if you take too long. One of the games I played when I was little. This one's an East Starland one. Really fun stuff. I used to pretend this game was Zelda back when I didn't have a Nintendo yet. I'd be like humming the Zelda theme because the guy goes up and down the screen. So it's like, yeah, we sent off hints to our parents when we had video games that we didn't have video games we wanted yet. All right, let's get this one over with because you might have seen that my hands have a bit of a powdery substance on them. No, I haven't been having a lot of donuts. I'm trying to lose weight. Here's Defender, another one I remember from my childhood. So Defender is the one you saw on the screen at the beginning. And this one is an East Starland one, and it had a loose label, and has all this dust on it, because I was over here like, yeah, well, the only glue I have is super glue. That sounds a little overkill, but instead of going out and buying something like a glue stick or something that's more appropriate for a label, let's just use the super glue. And I wound up super gluing my fingers more than the actual label, and now I got all this crap I gotta, unless it just ate the paint right off of it. But, yeah, I got the powdered donut version of Defender, because I was being lazy. I wouldn't go buy a frickin' glue stick. Doesn't matter anyways, because I actually have some Atari games from DK Oldies that I bought out of their B stock, cosmetically flawed, that are even worse and need some reproduction labels if they ever want to look decent again. Adventure! DK Oldies. It's interesting, though, how the 70s Atari games with this whole look to it, this is 1980 Atari, but the 70s style early games, I think this is faded, though. I don't think it was originally this color. I think it was more yellowish, but I remember seeing a mix of 70s games and 80s games. I call these 70s games because the font looks like something from the 70s, even though it is from 1980. But Adventure! Used with joystick controllers. Yeah. 64 telegames. That's a lot of games to fit on one cartridge, especially an Atari cartridge that would have been like 4 kilobytes back in the day. Wow. Sears, Roebuck & Co., aka Sears, definitely had some wonderful technology up their sleeves, didn't they? Or is this a multi-cart? Or no, it's from the Sears Video Arcade, the rebranded Sears version of the 2600. This is game number 64 in the Telegames collection. There were some interesting ways of trying to sell video games back when they were so new that you had to figure out how to get customers to buy them in the first place as new types of products. This is from the Sears Telegames Video Arcade, their rebranded thing. But I still feel weird when I see an Asteroids game with an asterisk and a yellow label instead of blue. But this one was actually cheaper, so I got it. I was like, what could possibly be the difference between the Sears version and the blue cartridge I remember from the Atari days? Well, enough that I eventually just got another blue Asteroids. This is the one I remember. 80s Atari with the blue, with the blue font and stuff like that. Doesn't look like something from some like 70s board game or something. Adventure game program, 3 skill levels. How about some actual graphics? This is the 80s Atari that I remember, with more of an emphasis on presentation. And the blue Asteroids is the one that, yeah. The blue asteroids is the one I remember. This is actually my first time with the Sears Telegames version. And since they weren't, since these weren't as popular, maybe people didn't like them because they look different. That's probably why this is in such great shape. I might buy some other duplicates of the Sears Telegames versions of some of these games, just for the fun of it. There is a collector element to Atari stuff, though, but I'm not a full-blown collector. I'm not looking for complete in box or anything. I just want to have Atari games again. Galaga for the Atari 7800, a legit 7800 cartridge. I never had this game. I know what it is. I've played it on emulators and compilation games, but I didn't actually have this back in the day. So the Atari 7800 had black and white labels as like a cost cutter thing, because they were really... there was the 7800, sadly, I call it the ill-fated 7800 for a reason, but you go from all these wonderful colors, and it looks really nice, and, it looks pretty on a shelf, to this, yeah, that's how you knew something was wrong at Atari. I mean, this is contemporary. This game, this cartridge, I should say, copyright 1987, is contemporary to the NES, so, where is the retro Nintendo player that hooks up via HDMI? And it's officially made by Nintendo and doesn't screw up the freaking sound like so many Famiclones I've known who've done NES over the years have done. Some people are like, oh, it's the HDMI audio. No, I remember the Yobo game boxes back in the day that screwed up the sound with no HDMI. The original pole position for the 2600. This is one I didn't have as a kid. I had its sequel, Pole Position 2, the pack-in game on the Atari 7800. Eventually I was like, let's check out the 2600 predecessor of it. And it is cruder, but I find it playable at the very, very least. Alright, here's another one. Here's another DK Oldies one. It looks like it came from some yard sale somewhere. Frogger, made by Parker Brothers. Because once upon a time, there were board game companies getting into video games before the crash of '83. There was even a game company out there that was a subsidiary of Quaker Oats. But yeah, Frogger, get the frog across the highway and across the river without getting eaten by crocodiles or run over by the cars. I think it's called Frogalog in some other parts of the world or something like that. Parker Brothers. I did have some Parker Brothers games when I was little, but not this one. Certainly knew about it, though. It's about time that I picked this up when I'm today years old, as the memes say. Space Invaders. It wouldn't be Atari without Space Invaders. And I don't know why there's an asterisk on this one, but this is the classic right here. And if you play it with a subwoofer, it's going to rattle your room when your ship gets blown up by the aliens. In today's world, of course. Speaking of, DK Oldies, cosmetically flawed, Q*bert. This was one I remember from before we moved to Connecticut when I was a little kid, playing this over the friend's house. It looks like somebody was trying to get price tags off of the label on this poor thing, and they were about 80% successful and took like 80% of the label with it. So there actually are Atari age folks that make reproduction labels, which tanks the value of your game if you ever want to try and sell it or trade it. But these are Atari games. They're like $2. I might actually get a repro label for this one. DK Oldies, cosmetically flawed. Yep, that's why it was. And same to be said for Crystal Castles here. They ripped Bentley Bear's face off. Bentley Bear's Amazing Adventures. And they tore the label, probably trying to get price tags off of this thing. So another good candidate for repro labels to make this look respectable again. Just as this one from DK Oldies, Maze Craze. So the thing is, I'm buying these scratch and dent games from DK Oldies just for the hell of it, because I really don't care if it's cosmetically flawed or not, and they're probably having a hard time moving the stock. Plus, it's not a problem for me to razor off a label and put on some repros. I don't intend on selling these, and if I do, I don't expect to get hardly anything for them. So I really don't care if I destroy the value of the game by not leaving the worn-out, crooked label that obviously got too hot and like that. Or maybe this is a repro label that somebody tried and it didn't stick, or it was B-stock to begin with. Oh yeah, Maze Craze, handwritten on the bottom. Yeah, another good candidate for some reproduction labels. Here's Math Grand Prix, a game I totally don't need to play anymore because I know how to add. I just got it because...
Oh yes, silly kid me was kind of dumb, you see.
And got in lots of trouble saying Math Grand Prix.
Epic fail.
So I would put this in, I would say I was playing Math Grand Prix. Hey Dad, I'm playing Math Grand Prix. Watch your mouth, that's not a good word. Math Grand Prix, baby. The sad part is, kid me didn't know about the adult-themed video games being made for the Atari back then. Maybe somebody at, what was that company called? Mystique? Could have made a Math Grand Prix parody of this game. But, alright, we don't need to get any more demonetized than we already are.
Epic fail.
All Math Grand Prix jokes aside, I saw the world very, very differently when I was 6. Speaking of different, frogs and flies. I think it's called Frog Bog in some other parts of the world, but two frogs, as my voice cracks, 2 frogs on lily pads in the swamp jumping up in the air eating flies. Frogs and fries, there we go. Yeah, put them in a frickin' McDonald's or something, cooking burgers, I don't know. This was one of my favorites, actually. Turn off the difficulty switches, and you didn't jump from lily to lily automatically. You could land in the water and stuff. I thought it was cool. It's a great example of an Atari game. You just turn it on, play a few rounds for 10 minutes against the computer with one of your buddies, and you turn it off. Nice, simple, stress-free gaming. Oh, wait. I totally forgot. The M Network. So we've seen Parker Brothers. Because back then, Mattel was involved in video games. So all of these, like, toy companies and board game companies were getting into video games before the infamous crash. Haven't seen a Quaker Oats game yet, and these games are getting so big they're blocking out the light. So, let's see. There we go. You didn't hear a bunch of games falling over, so that means I succeeded. Let's continue with this haul, so to speak. Missile Command. Screw you, Brezhnev. I'm shooting your ICBMs out of the sky. 1981. Yuri Andropov hadn't taken over yet, I don't think. And Mikhail Gorbachev was still a couple years away. So this is a game that has the Reagan era of the Cold War written all over it. I really didn't understand just how dark this game's theme really was. But yeah, missiles come flying at you, and you got to shoot them out with countermeasures before they blow everything up. So definitely a sign of the Cold War with that game. Now, I used to, as a little kid, screw my words up. We already looked at adventure earlier. Here's venture. So we had an adventure and a venture. I might have played this on somebody's ColecoVision, too, at some point. Now, this is a Coleco, obviously it's a Coleco game, so Coleco, made in USA. Venture! For use with Atari, VCS, and Sears Video Arcade, because the Sears Video Arcade was an Atari VCS. It just said Sears on it. I also found out about the Darth Vader 2600 as well. I was today years old when I found out that such a thing existed. Hey, when's that going to be made into a 2600 plus Atari SA? Trivia for you folks who want to know your early 80s gaming history, Coleco stands for Connecticut Leather Company. We mentioned Quaker Oats got into video games back then. Well, so did a leather company. Pac-Man! Regular Pac-Man. Now, this one has a label that needs a little glue, but I will not dust it up with super glue again. I'm going to get some real glue sticks or something like that and fix it the real way. But yeah, Pac-Man. Good old Pac-Man. I didn't actually think there was anything wrong with this game. I thought Miss Pac-Man was newer and better, and this was the sucky original. Well, I had the sucky original part down right. Then again, Kid Me just got upset Kid Me just got upset that I had to play with 4 ghosts instead of using the difficulty game select thingy or whatever to drop it down to just 1 ghost. I think I might have played one of the arcade versions of Pac-Man at a pizza restaurant with one of those like arcade table things where the game goes under glass where you eat your pizza or something. But I didn't really think there was anything wrong with this game. Probably because I wasn't in the arcades or anything. So as far as I was concerned, it was just the suckier version of Miss Pac-Man. I also knew about Junior Pac-Man, but never got a chance to play it. There's a Pac-Man compilation game on Steam nowadays, so I have played it, and I think they got the formula right pretty darn well when Junior Pac-Man came out. Alright, now we have Centipede, which I also am familiar with Millipede as well. This game taught me what a centipede was, because I was like, what's a centipede? It's an insect. So I learned what centipedes and millipedes were, the games on the Atari. So we'll save my favorite for last here. Let's continue. Yar's Revenge. You can't have an Atari without Yar's Revenge. I really never understood this game, like Space Bugs or something. There's probably a manual somewhere that I could read, because this is back in the days where you had to read the manual to know the game's backstory, because, it's freaking Atari. Yar's Revenge was something where some folks we knew who had Atari had this game, but I could never figure it out. I never could. People say it's a really good game, and I've never been able to figure out why. Probably a generation gap. There's probably some more hardcore Atari fans that could tell me why Yar's Revenge is so amazing. I was always like, why the heck is there this bug flying around in space? Almost done with the haul, folks. And of course, another 70s style game. I've seen the 80s style version of this one too, but I got the 70s one when I ordered it. Combat! This is a game program, and it tells you, unlike the 80s one, it tells you what all the tank pong, invisible tank, biplane, and jet fighter. It actually made in Taiwan too, back when we bragged about, free China and the like. I think this is before the One China policy, when we still considered Taiwan to be legitimate China instead of the communists. But, Combat. Oh yes, the 70s version of Combat that nobody, I think a handful of times someone played this with me and I always lost or something like that. The rest of the time I was being an idiot and just playing it one player, being like, I can shoot the other tank that's not moving. I actually think the 70s version of this is better, as I would call it, because it tells you what everything is when you're flipping through the difficulties, so instead of having to look it up or something. I have seen the 80s version of Combat, though. The one that actually has like the pictures of the tanks and the better font and stuff. But hey, don't mind the old stuff. The very first Activision game that I ever played was Activision Ice Hockey. Long before the days of Activision Blizzard, Call of Duty, or whatever, you had this. And I totally didn't understand hockey. I totally didn't understand hockey. At least it tells you what the 4 game modes are for 1-player and 2-player. But here's an Activision cartridge. Early Activision. There was this thing I saw on X before I came over here, like, what do you think of when you see the Activision logo? Activision Ice Hockey. I think this is how I first learned what hockey was, and then, well, yeah, the rest is history. I usually lose to the computer, by the way, because I suck at it. Saving the best for last is Pole Position 2 for the 7800. This is a game that that I am so glad that I was able to get in such good condition from East Starland. Pole Position 2 doesn't have the things that indicate that someone tried to go into the cartridge, clean the contacts. 1986 little Namco thingy here, because we know the 7800 was actually delayed by 2 years, so this was the pack-in game. So my earliest memories of having my own video gaming system are the direct result of Pole Position 2. Even though I was a 6-year-old, I do like the little itty bitty test track where you drive in a straight line and make 4 little turns. There's also the Fuji course, the Suzuka course, and a Seaside course in here too. I saw my dad playing those once, but this is what I got with my original 7800, and I absolutely had to have this back in my collection when I got back into 7800 plus. Hell with Bentley Bear. This is the real pack-in game here. Okay, all the pretty games are gone now, except for 3 of them that I'm going to keep over here for some stuff we're doing a little later on. But I just wanted to note that with the Sears Telegames Asteroids Pole Position 2 and Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, we actually see the names of the 3 Ataris on the cartridges here. So, let's see, copyright Atari Inc. in 1980, and then after it went a little more corporate and was under Warner Brothers and stuff, we have Atari Corp., and nowadays a subsidiary of Atari SC, or SA, Atari Interactive. We'll come back to those games later. For now, though, I think it's long past time we finally looked at one of these silver boxes again. For the first time since I looked at a silver box for Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong Jr., way back when I was little and had my first Atari. And, of course, in the corner here, we have ESRB here. Let's take the film off of these things. The film has been removed, Commander, and what we're looking at here is Berserk and Space Duel for the Atari 7800 Plus, some of the new game releases that have been coming out. And these I did not pay the full $30 for. I got them from Amazon's B stock. Because Amazon, in their infinite non-wisdom, and Atari SA, in their infinite not-so-retro wisdom, they're having some issues with their supply chain and ending up with a bunch of B stock. Let's go into detail on this. There's a lot of rants that I'm seeing among Atari people because they want to collect for the new 7800, and their stuff keeps showing up crushed. Well, I can tell you without even opening the boxes, I can already tell you as to why. These are both B-stock games. So this one got poked somewhere along the line, or maybe it got crushed along the way, and this one has been kitty-cornered and stuff. But when you pick these up, you find that all the weight is towards the top. And if you give them a poke like Space Duel, you find out very quickly, like Space Duel here, you find out very quickly that the cartridge is here, and it's air here. So Amazon is like, oh, we're responsible. We use less material in our packaging. And then they're stupid enough to send these things in envelopes instead of proper hard cardboard boxes. And so there are a lot of these that are ending up B-stock because visible damage to the packaging was observed during shipping. Yeah, morons, because you sent these things in an envelope. At the very same time, the fact that there's air here means that Atari SA doesn't quite have the same experience doing this as like Nintendo had with the NES. Because I remember from numerous games that I received on the NES when I was growing up, new in box, there would always be a piece of styrofoam or something in the bottom so that the part of the box that would be empty air, because the cartridge wasn't there, wouldn't be so crushable. This obviously doesn't have that. I can tell that even without opening them, because this one got poked through. Let's look inside here. See, that flips up, that flips out, and what we see is foldable cardboard. So, yeah, I mean, styrofoam's not biodegradable and stuff, but they should have put something like a rectangular piece of cardboard or something in the bottoms of these, and then maybe they wouldn't have so many problems with all of this B-stock popping up on Amazon, because there's lots of opportunities to get this stuff not full price if you don't want to pay $30 for an Atari game anymore. And of course the Atari 2600 Plus, even the more popular of the consoles, no flash sale going on with it, but it's also having issues where stuff's getting damaged, and there's now B stock available for under $100 on a $130 console. If you want to get a 2600 Plus and you don't mind the box being dinged, you are regularly having options because Amazon keeps B stocking themselves to death like this. Let's get these open and check them out. No. Let's look at the boxes one last time. In space, you can hear robots scream. Bunch of languages. Legions of sinister androids are chasing and mocking you, you puny human. Try to keep from going bonkers as you dodge robot fire and elude the villainous Evil Otto. Your objective, destroy robots, rack up as many points as possible, and stay alive within a multitude of maddening mazes. Don't touch the walls, and don't let the taunting of Otto's robotic squadrons get to you. They're almost all talk. They're compatible with 2600 plus, original 7800 and 7800 plus, the gamepads from both the original run in Europe and the plus run now, joysticks of course, and the horrendous Pro line knuckle-hurting joysticks, way too stiff, way too plastic, way too not comfortable on the original 7800. Just had to look at this at least once. It's been a very long time since I've seen an Atari box for literally anything, because I did see a boxed Xevious in a thrift store one time, but I can tell you, just from holding them like this, and probably putting a ding in it doing that, the cartridge is up here, and there's empty space in way too many places on these things. Yes, that could be a problem. Definitely too much empty airspace, which is why these things keep getting crushed. Have you played Atari today? Hold on. Haven't smelled that in about 30 years. Brand new Atari game. Yep, so we get manuals, which is cool. And also we get dust sleeves for the cartridges. Nice! So Bentley Bear wasn't just, well, either way. The cool part is that Bentley Bear's a homebrew game, so maybe some other good homebrews on Atari Age, which there are plenty of them, can get physical releases this way. It's kind of stupid to be doing things the old-fashioned way when emulation is so great these days. But there's just something cool about, having the cartridge you put into the thing and turn it on and have the original controller and stuff, and not play like some Atari compilation game on PlayStation 2, 3, 4, 5, Steam, what have you. Guess we'll have to see how these dust sleeves work versus their NES predecessors, because that's what these remind me of. So this is going to be the part where I stop making the video for a really long time because I'm playing the new games. But before we do that, let me answer one question about all of this with Space Duel here, which is supposed to be similar, by the way, to Asteroids, similar kind of game. Although I definitely see a little bit of a Star Wars reference with that spaceship. But let's see what happens here. No Game Genie sounds. Just had to break in the brand new connector. So that's what all that noise was last time. Still hard to do one hand. Let's try Berserk. Nothing to it. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. This was a homebrew. There was no 7800 Berserk. I'm getting it mixed up with the 5200 version. Oops.
Epic fail.
Well, folks, does the next day count as, I'm going to take a break and play all the new games for a long time and continue the video later? Anyways, I wanted to go over a few important details regarding these new Atari boxes, because as much as they may look like re-releases or something like that, the bottom line is they are modern gaming devices. They are modern consoles underneath the retro-looking shell. This is running Stella and Pro System emulators, but that's not the only way that this differs radically from the OG hardware. There's actually some notable differences that I don't know if any of the other videos about these things have been talking about. But this thing, in a way, does operate like a modern console. And even if you think modern is like PlayStation 2 or something, 2, 3, 4, 5, pick your PlayStation. I think even the PS1 kind of operated a bit this way too. But bottom line, this thing operates more like a modern piece of gaming hardware than its namesake. For example, you can turn it on without a darn cartridge in it, and it'll actually do something. And so, yeah, we get the Atari thing here. And much like if we started like a CD player back in the day with no CD in it, it'll say no game detected. Of course, I've updated to the 2013 firmware from Atari Age, which is done via hooking the thing up to your computer and doing some button presses and making sure you have a very short, very fat USB-C cable so the data can transfer correctly, or you might get some errors. However, I have nothing loaded right now and just sitting there with an error message. But if I hit select and reset while it's on with nothing in it, let's see. There it goes. It goes into the service menu where you can select 50 Hertz mode for PAL type stuff, whatever. You have your bilinear filter, integer scaling for upscaling, even though it is a 720p signal, phosphor and 2-button for the 2600 games to enhance them a bit. So I don't want this to look like a straight-up emulator, so I do have some filters turned on. But here's something that you absolutely could not do with the original Atari. You can actually hot swap your games. I mean, these games are old games that don't even have save features or anything, so what's the deal here? Here's something you could never do with an original Atari. So I'm just going to load in, and much like if I open the tray on an old PlayStation and put a CD in it, when I close the lid or pop the tray back in, it'll start trying to read the disc. And so, in this case, it's trying to read the cartridge. So yeah, of course it's a 7800 game, so it takes longer to load. But anyways, just give it some time, and here we are, Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest. Let me start and sync my controller here. Well, it's still automatically paired to port 1 there. So I start my Bentley Bear game, and I decide I don't want to play Bentley Bear anymore. So yeah, Bentley Bear! Oh, it's on 1-button mode because I forgot to set my difficulty switch back. Difficulty switch determines 1-button or 2-button controls of these modern games. So, alright, so there's my Bentley Bear, but I want to play something else, so let's just take the game out. It's not like on a Super Nintendo where this would wipe out your save game. There's no save battery. Let me just change to pole position 2. Just put the cartridge in, and eventually it starts trying to read it. So, as much as folks like myself will be so tempted to turn these things on and off like in the olden days, you really don't have to do that. And you can even change platforms by doing that. We just went from, newer 7800 game back to classic 7800. But let's pull the cartridge. Let's pull pole position 2 out of there and put in the Sears Telegames Asteroids, since it's in such great shape. I'm going from 7800 to 2600 now, and it's basically still going to function. It'd be like if I switched out for PS2 to PS1 for the emulation part in a PlayStation 2 back in the day. But it's going to operate kind of the same way. Here we are, Asteroids for the 2600, and let's pull Asteroids out of there. So as you can see, let's pull Asteroids out of there, and let's put Bentley Bear back in and go back to where we started. No game detected until loads a game. And games these days on this specific equipment is hot swappable. So it looks like an old Atari, but it does not function like an old Atari. There is plenty of modern gaming stuff in boxes like the 7800 Plus these days. So here we go, we're loading into Bentley Bear yet again. But yeah, you could not do that on the old school Ataris, that's for sure. Yippee skippy, more games arrived, and what is this? Is Amazon finally figuring out what a cardboard box is again? Especially when they're shipping these types of things? Gee, I wonder. Too bad I bought all B stock. Box number 1 is Ninja Golf. An obvious B stock and someone else's return because the thing is already opened. Let's see what happened to this poor thing. So someone nailed it with a box cutter either in the warehouse or when they were trying to get it out of the box. But it didn't matter anyways because the whole thing's blatantly been crushed. Look at that. B stock. I really don't care if it's B stock anyways because I'm not looking for a giant collection of 7800 boxes. And by the way, we gotta get these delusional thoughts out of our heads. It's gonna be like baseball cards all over again. Stuff made with today's technology for these reprints is never gonna be as value as a CIB from the 80s. Well, looky what we have here. Someone being a total jackass and gluing a Pac-Man game into Ninja Golf for B stock, ripping off Amazon. Maybe this wasn't such a smart idea after all, but I will say from the box and everything that this is someone taking out petty vengeance on Amazon for doing this. You literally could not get the cartridge out of that sleeve because it was glued to it. So that means even if I get this Pac-Man game out of here, it's going to if I get this Pac-Man game out of here, it's probably going to destroy the label. So no, I'm returning this, and let's get some pictures of this. Oh man, this is somebody taking out their vengeance on Amazon for this whole thing by snubbing the person who buys the B stock. Yeah, well, screw you. Let's continue. Zippity-doo-duh. Pathetic. Either way, I opened a return with Amazon. Just said they sent me the wrong item, which they technically did. They really need to verify the cartridges when they receive these back, because I'll bet any money that this isn't something that happened accidentally. Probably a scam related to this whole packaging crap with the nothing in the bottom of the box issue that Atari is creating for the folks, I guess, their supply chains now. But what's to say that some moron got the box, crushed it, then stole the cartridge and glued a Pac-Man into the sleeve to make it hard to catch? I got news for this idiot. It was very easy to tell that something was fishy because there was dust on the brand new Atari cartridge, and 7,800 cartridges that are being re-released now have different bottoms than the 2,600 cartridges with their sliding dust covers. Idiots. Anyways, we'll try this again, but let me see what the other games are like. Yay! Shrink wrap! I already like these a lot better. This one obviously got dinged in the warehouse or crushed or whatever, but that's still... Well, let's see if we hear anything loose. Nothing. Good. And then we have Asteroids Deluxe over here, just a generic crushed box, one of those deals. The problem is, shrink wrap doesn't tell me very much. Shrink wrap is the sort of thing where someone could just have a shrink wrap machine. I mean, I think GameStop used to do this with people that are like, stop putting CDs in the cases, I want a sealed copy. Okay, we'll buy a shrink wrap machine. This is back in the Wii days, 20 years ago. Whatever, man. Let's check them out. Alright, no manual on this B-stock thing, but this is already a lot better than what we were looking at last time, because that looks promising, and it actually slides out. I was hoping, and I drop it on the floor.
Epic fail.
Yay! No scam nonsense this go around. It's nice to actually get what you ordered. You just imagine some jackass ordering one of these, putting in a 2600 Berserk game that doesn't work, putting it back, gluing it into the sleeve, you know, or something, and then, hey, you crushed my box, can I return it? See, what happened with the other game, the problem with that is not that it happened, it's that Amazon didn't verify that the cartridge that was returned was actually the right one. I mean, here's 2600, here's the re-release 2600. You can see there's no slidey thing on it. The slidey thing that serves as a dust cover, that was the thing in the original run of the 2600. Yeah, this thing. That was the thing in the original 2600's run. Not so much a thing nowadays, because, well, people know how to take care of cartridge games after a generation of them, and then some. And, yeah, it makes it easier to get the cotton swabs in there to clean them off. Let's fire this up. Just make sure I didn't get stung again. Make sure... So this should be the version of Berserk that has the robot shooting diagonal and the voice stuff. And it should look like a 2600 game. Alright, let's see what we got here. And the dude should be green and not pink. I already have this game in Atari 50, but this is my physical release of it. This looks promising. Jeez. I got the volume wrong. Reset. Reset. There we go. It helps if it's not like an Action 52 game where you spawn. It helps if it's not like an Action 52 game where you spawn next to an enemy. What was that? Star Evil, I think it was called. Alright, where's Evilado? Do I have to flip the difficulty? I think I have to flip the difficulty switch. Evilado should be showing up if I don't do anything. Let's flip the difficulty. Try next go around and see if the robots can shoot diagonally. This is the right game, alright. Come on, shoot diagonally. I know it's the... There it is. All right, where's Evil Otto? Yoo-hoo! Evil Otto! Yoo-hoo! Maybe it's a different game mode where he actually shows up. This plays like the original OG 2600 version I played when I was 6. All right, let's flip the difficulty back. It's obviously a different game mode. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... Oh, shoot, I forgot what the game modes are. Let's try mode 4. No manual, for this one. Where's Evil Otto? It's not a Berserk game without Evil Otto randomly showing up. He certainly shows up in the 7800 version. For comparison, 7800 version. Where's Evil Otto?
Intruder alert, intruder alert.
There he is. Smiley face.
Humanoid magna escape.
And it plays kind of like a cross between the arcade game and the 5200 version.
It can fight like a robot. Humanoid.
Asteroids Deluxe. Not totally the same as the 7800's Asteroids game. It's more of a vector graphics thing on par with the arcade version of the game. So, yeah, let's check it out and make sure we actually got it after what we've seen today. Yay! It passed the does it slip out of the sleeve test, unlike that little Pac-Man fiasco earlier. It's just too bad this isn't actually a re-release of the 7800 version of Asteroids, but I actually have that on Atari 50, so not that big of a deal. It'd be cool to see like a cart that I could collect or something. Let's fire this one up. Scratching the collector's itch. This is another homebrew arcade port here. What's that thing? Oh. Welcome back to 1981. Ah! Whoops! Game over. Yeah, I just star eviled myself. What does the other button do, or does it only work with one button? Yeah, it's got a little shield on it, so it's kind of like Space Duel in that respect. Speaking of which, not quite so... Well, I guess it is vector. Just a little different. This time we're shooting giant spores in space. It's got a little... The other button is a shield that wears out the more stuff you crash into stuff. These vector graphic shooters. Dates back to the Tron era. At least that's what the movie was supposed to take place in. Darn it! I die on the bonus level. That's how much I suck at these games. Yeah, and hey, while we're at it, let's see if Captain Dumbass actually sent me a working copy of Pac-Man while he was stinging Amazon like that. Loading game. Loading game. Well, at least the bozo tried to sting Amazon with a working copy of Pac-Man. Oh yeah, this totally looks like Ninja Golf. Whatever. Berserk, berserk, berserk. How many berserks do you really need? I don't know, I guess that's my problem. Speaking of my problems, It's time for me to do what I probably should have done a long time ago with all these cartridges. Who knows where they came from, and who knows when they were last cleaned. Yeah, I was an idiot who played them first and busted out the cotton swabs later. Let's try and limit the damage, shall we? Now we know that Atari 2600 games have this idiot-proofing feature, don't poke your connectors, with this stupid little trap door that covers up the connectors, so I don't know, you can't stick a piece of toast in there or something. Actually, I have seen Atari cartridges where someone jammed a piece of toast into them. Made zero sense, but I've seen it before. So apparently there's little things you poke like the console does, and the whole thing slides backwards. Now, given the size of the opening, I think a Korean chopstick would actually be really handy for this sort of thing. Just put it in backwards. Let's see if a Korean chopstick is the skeleton key for cleaning off Atari cartridges. Let's see. We're in, and it slides freely. I like that. I was close. It's like the crowbar for Atari games. You just get the thing sliding and then use it to poke it down the rest of the way, and now you can get in and stick a cotton swab to those connectors. So I'll have to do this with one with each hand. So I'll show you if any of these are real doozies. I'm not going to make a video of me cleaning cartridges for however long this takes, obviously. Yeah, I'm getting some crap coming off of this. That's the sad reality of connector cartridge games from the 70s and 80s and 90s, is that it's just this was a feature of the technology for decades. But I found out with Nintendo 64 games, for some reason, suddenly that stopped. I don't know if there was a protective coating or they used different metal, but yep, the old ritual of busting out the cotton swabs to clean contacts goes back generations in the retro gaming world. I was close. It's like the crowbar for Atari games. You just get the thing sliding and then use it to poke it down the rest of the way, and now you can get in and stick a cotton swab to those connectors. So I'll have to do this with one with each hand. So I'll show you if any of these are real doozies. I'm not going to make a video of me cleaning cartridges for however long this takes, obviously. My brand new Berserk is actually dirtier than the 2600 cartridge. I wonder if this was transferred from some of these winners. Defender, dirtiest one yet. Even East Starland drops the ball in this crap. Ms. Pac-Man from DK Oldies. It might not show up in the camera either. There's also some off-yellow residue mixed in with this one, which means this game at one point was owned by a smoker. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Combat, one of the most popular games on the 2600 of all time, is the dirtiest. This is like solid black when I got into these connectors, and I'm getting a ton of yellow as well, so nicotine residue. It's one of those things, I mean, this doesn't smell like cigarettes. Probably hasn't been smoked around in many years, but that nicotine residue, it just gets on stuff and it sticks on stuff. Man. Yeah, smoking was more socially acceptable back when this stuff was current, but it's just wild how I'm wiping off all of this nicotine residue from these things all these years later. I have no idea how long this one's been sitting around, but this is the old style cartridge, so who knows? Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest. Look at that! That's awful! Maybe I should try some deoxit spray on these things. Deoxit's supposed to be a protectant as well as a cleaner, but I'm just using regular 91% alcohol now. But yeah, this thing's as bad as my Nintendo games used to be back in the day. Done! I haven't done this much swabbing of contacts in many years. That's how many swabs I went through. I'm seriously wondering about swapping the alcohol for deoxit spray next go around though. I never really understood the whole oxidation on connectors thing and why Nintendo 64 didn't have these problems, but I just don't want to be one of those wackos that uses Brasso on their games or something. I will say though, from the height of this tower, I better find myself another shoebox, because I am well on my way to having another shoebox of Atari games. Well, what can I say? If you look at the prices of common titles like It's probably one of the few forms of retro gaming that hasn't gotten super expensive over the years. And now we've got the brand new Ataris that'll play these things that are hitting flash sales and getting down into the 70s now for prices. It's wild. And it's like the polar opposite of gaming as we're knowing it nowadays. When people are talking about like $100 video games, consoles that cost $50,000, games as a service, DLC, microtransactions, blah 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 blah. The game never actually working when you buy it, and always having to be patched. Atari is like the polar opposite of that. So who knows? Maybe the Atari Renaissance will be bigger than I think. You never know. It is now Monday. So much for Jay's Atari weekend. But anyways, I couldn't let this whole Ninja Golf thing fall by the wayside. I now have a stock Ninja Golf. Let's see if we can make up for the fiascos of what happened over the real weekend. Box is opened. Box is only getting crushed by the tension of the wrap. Finally! It's about time this was done, right? What's with all the scratches on the wrap, though? So, Ninja Golf, this is a more contrived sounding game, but it's actually more fun than it sounds. But it's nice to see that the ESRB's on there. So, it's sealed. There better not be a Pac-Man game in here either. Ninja Golf Atari A stock, whoop-de-doo, $3 more, whatever. The Ultimate Ninja and Sporting Challenge, a game of golf, and Fierce Ninja Battle. So the way this works is you play golf, and then in between the golf, you beat up ninjas. I thought it was kind of silly, but it is kind of fun. It's just different. Let's pop the wrap on it. But I'm glad to see that finally Amazon has rediscovered what a box is. Yeah, sure, Atari SA needs to work on their supply chain and how they package things. But until then, yeah, it'd be nice if the Amazons of the world cooperated instead of sending these effing things out in envelopes. Okay, we ready? This is how it's really supposed to work. Bonk. Ninja Golf. I'm just, once again, getting nostalgic with memories of seeing these in Toys R Us when I was little. Yep, the original versions of these 7800 releases. But, finally, I mean, I have this in Atari 50, but now I can finally play this darn game with the with the 7800 plus. 'Bout darn time. Ninja Golf! Yay! Alright, just one more thing before I fire this up. This is the first cartridge game I've ever purchased brand new in the YouTube era. I know, hard to believe, right? So, what I'm going to do is try cleaning it immediately before even playing it. Let's see if the connectors get oxidation just from shipping. Nothing! Yay! Thought I was losing it in my old age for a second there. Alright, well, the latest reason why this huge tech video is getting delayed. I'm gonna play me some Ninja Golf. Let's be blunt, folks. We all have our vices. Yeah. Some are just more bizarre than others. Yeah. Come on, Atari, load this bastard. Shooby-dooby-dooby-doo. 7800 takes longer. Who thought this up? How many drinks did they have, and what kind of drugs were they doing? Yes, the game is exactly what you think it is. Just pick which way your shot's going. Aw, did I land in the rough? And then beat up ninjas the whole way over. See what the buttons are. Ah, the buttons are backwards. The buttons are backwards, so the button, the B button, or the 2 button, or the 1 button, or whatever is jump. The one to the left is jump. and then the other ones attack. Yep, so you just keep beating up ninjas and animals until you get to where your ball is. And try not to get killed. Kick the frog, kick a ninja. Kick the frog, kick a ninja. And then finally, we're here for another shot. Let's get it out of the green. And then kick and punch our way there. This looks like this sort of game that we should stream at some point. It's just... This was Atari! The swan song of Atari. I think this came out, what, 1990 or something? I wonder if someone's ever made a homebrew game that's like this but better. Alright, let's get it onto the green. Beat up the gopher! Come on. I get my ass kicked by a gopher more than by freaking ninjas. Ah! So what happens when we get it on the green? Darn it! I think this is like inspired by Shinobi or something. Now there's a dragon on the green instead of putting it in. Ah! I have never, well, not never, but I've almost never played this game. This is like the ninja star scene in Shinobi. Okay, I scared the dragon away. And that's Ninja Golf. It is now the weekend after the so-called Atari weekend that this whole thing was supposed to be, so it has morphed quite blatantly into an Atari renaissance of sorts. So since we're at an hour and counting for the footage so far, let's wrap this up, because let's be realistic. The games are going to keep coming in. I have a lot of stuff on order, and some other stuff has come up as well. So let's wrap this one up, because let's face it, all that's going to keep happening is this video is going to keep getting longer and longer, and I'm never actually going to release it unless I slam the door on things right now. So let's button up a few things here. The latest arrival is Mr. Run and Jump for the Atari 2600 and 2600 Plus. Basically, if the 2600 had a Mario game, this would be it. It's a platformer about a dude chasing after his dog. Now, the 7800 Plus is down to $90 without a flash sale on Amazon. So, one of the things that people are wondering about is why get this when the wood grain is where all the nostalgia is? Because the pause button works on everything. If you want to have a pause button, play your Atari games on a 7800 Plus. Here's Telegames Asteroids, which, by the way, the 64 Telegames just says the number of modes on these cartridges. There was no, like, catalog number or something. The Sears Telegames thing was before my time, so I've been playing a little bit of catch-up. But as we can see here, we have Asteroids going on the 2600, and if I hit pause, it stops. Then if I hit pause again, so if you've ever wanted a pause button for 2600 games, you will have one on the 7800 Plus now, because it's running Stella and Pro System emulators. So, yay! Of course, the 2600 Plus has the color and black and white switch, so there really are varying reasons to own both retro consoles at this point, although my favorite's the 7800 Plus. Of course, I originally did 7800 OG, so I guess I shouldn't claim not to be biased or anything. Let's load up Pole Position 2 on here. Now, next question. I always do things with the kilowatt. So, what are we looking at for the kilowatt on this thing? Keep in mind that you could do Stretch-O-Vision and play these games in 16:9 if you really wanted to, but even just for 3, well, I don't think that actually makes much of a difference. But the electrical specifications on this are that it's looking for a 1 amp phone box charger thingy. So 5 volts, 1 amp, Ohm's law, watts equals volts times amps. 5 times 1 is 5. This is a 5 watt device, tops. And here we are running pole position 2 at 2.5 watts. And let me see, where's the Stretch-O-Vision switch? Let's turn on Stretch-O-Vision. Let's see. I think I have to restart it. I think I have to... Oops, I just started a game. I think I have to reboot it in order to... Yeah, reboot is the term to use here. I think I have to reboot it for it to start playing in Stretch-O-Vision. Either that or my monitor's canceling it out because it knows the incoming... Yeah, I think the monitor's canceling it out because it knows the incoming signal is 4.3 stretched, so it's forcing it back to 4.3. So... yeah, Stretch-O-Vision's not going to work on this thing, but even still, I can sit here thumbing the switch all day, back and forth between 4.3 and 16.9, and it's not moving the dial at all on this thing. Yeah, and some setting I have on the monitor that forces everything to be at its correct aspect ratio. Hitting the Stretch-O-Vision switch isn't going to do anything for me. So yeah. If you're entertained by Atari games, this is a 5 watt tops console. The funny part is, because there's more graphical options, of course I have the bilinear filter turned on, which is why everything's not totally pixel sharp, as you've been seeing throughout this video. It is doing 720p, but I can make things a little bit sharper by turning off the bilinear filter. But I played these games on CRTs, so I don't mind them being a little fuzzy, because I'm old school like that. But anyways, if an Atari game entertains you in any way, shape, or form, this is a 5 watt device. Versus playing these on an emulator on your gaming PC, using your gaming PC's wattage, I am going to be way above 5 watts with my gaming PC setup, even with the Ryzen and PowerSafe mode, because, well... my system is made for today's games, not games from 40 years ago. So, it's another cool thing about being retro at these things and collecting cartridges. Plus, Atari is just so retro at this point that you're talking about Atari games costing about as much as cheapo Steam games these days. So just dig out, whatever common titles you want, maybe preview them on an emulator or watch a long play or something. Decide what you want in your collection, because you do have to watch out for that, because Atari had an infamous run-in with shovelware that led to the '83 crash. But anyways, yeah, so pole position 2, if this entertains you, you will get Atari entertainment for very little watts, because the console runs off of USB-C. It's basically a Raspberry Pi type thing with 2 emulators on it. Dedicated device. Can't imagine it takes that much CPU power to run. I am so tempted, though, to get like a hardcore hippie chip computer that's made for like net tops and try running games on it with a graphics card and see if like I can do stuff with like a 5 watt processor or something. Have all the wattage come from the GPU. I'm so tempted to try that. But with Trump tariffs and whatnot jacking the price of electronics in short order, I'm going to wait until we're not so nuts here in the United States. Anyways, pole position 2, baby. Now let's talk about, of course, I was testing the 2600 power draw with the original pole position. And I saw actually increased power use because there's a phosphor filter built in that I had turned on. So the GPU, the little bitty GPU in this thing, is working just a teensy-weensy bit harder to show 2600 games. But we're talking about like a half watt difference here. Let me fire this up and just have the player keep crashing into stuff. So it's running pole position with no controller, so it's going to go in a straight line. And wow, 3.2 watts. That's going to be one super expensive electric bill. There we go. Time to start crashing into everything. Because I have a game going. The game auto-accelerates, so I have no joystick paired up to this, so it's just going to keep riding along the bumper until it crashes into something, or the time runs out in 55 seconds. But... yep, 3.2 watts for a 2600 game. I'll bet the phosphor filter has something to do with that. Oh well. Either way. Hey, that would have been a great way to demo the pause button, too. Let's load that back up. While that's loading, let's do 3 more. So, I remember Xevious. Never had this one, but I saw it in a thrift store once upon a time. Played the Nintendo version, got the Atari version. Yay! Some differences versus the Nintendo version because of the hardware differences. Some CK wrote his name on that, tried to take it off with alcohol, and it took the paint off. I'm just going to do reproduction labels on this cart later on. I accidentally ordered duplicates, so I'm going to resell the dupe and fix this one up as my refurb. Good to see that come in. Mr. Run and Jump, of course, being my latest Atari Renaissance game for the 2600 plus and whatnot. I've gotten to level 2 on this thing, but one day this little Atari dude will find his lost dog. Let's hit reset on this and get it playing, and then we can hit the pause button on pole position on the 2600. There, see? Pause, pause, pause. Pausing 2600 games. Ain't that something? And now lastly, Donkey Kong Jr. The first of me getting my childhood collection of 7800 games back. And the least expensive. Donkey Kong and Mario Brothers are going to cost me a lot more. I think Dig Dug will cost me about the same, around the $20 mark. Why am I nuts enough to pay that kind of money for these games? Just to have them back in physical media format. Plus, razor and blades. Play them on a 5-watt device instead of emulating them on my computer. Unless, of course, I emulate on a laptop instead that only does 5 watts or something. Or build one of those RetroPie type things and whatnot. You know what? Heck with it. Let's put pole position 2 back in there. Just to have something on that screen. But Donkey Kong Jr. is basically the first of me getting my childhood collection back. So, my dad used to chuckle about how my grandparents gave away his baseball cards. Now I chuckle about how he gave away my NES and Atari stuff. My Atari 7800 did meet its bitter end when I fried a transistor trying to fix the broken buttons in the electronics shop in high school. But, I don't know, I guess I partially deserve that for trying to be Mr. Fix-It. But here we go again. I am atoning for my sins, and this is the first of me getting my childhood collection back. You know what? Let's load that one up. There's no sound out of this because it's a Samsung monitor and not a TV, but let's load this up. Let's just load this on up and have this be like the outro screen or something. So yeah, have you played Atari today? I sure have. Oh, wait a minute. We don't turn the lights off until we're done. Have you played Atari today? I absolutely have. And I'm getting my old collection back. Not that it was all that big in the first place. Minus shovelware titles and other blah titles I didn't really care about. But there will be more games. There are more coming. And I don't want this video to be any longer than it already is. So... Have I played Atari today? Yes, I have. Hey, Donkey Kong Jr. 2.5 watts. So even playing an early 80s arcade classic like this, it's only 2.5 watts. That might even be less watts than running the NES version of this on an original NES. Okay, time to quit being such a hippie with these video games. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey,